The moment I saw the camera light blink red, I knew the truth was about to hurt. My daughter's voice, soft, trembling, fake, echoed through that hospital room. "Don't worry, Mom. You'll always have me." But when she thought I was asleep, her tone changed. Cold, calculating, cruel. They weren't comforting me. They were planning to steal what her father built. $7 million. And my trust. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I watched. I listened. And when I finally pressed play on that footage, what I saw made my blood run cold. Because betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it comes from the child you love most. I never meant to lie to my daughter, but when you've lived long enough, you learn that the people closest to you can hide behind the sweetest words. After Harold died, the world went quiet in ways I didn't expect. He'd been my husband for 43 years, patient, proud, steady as a metronome. We built our company from nothing. Trucks, warehouses, long nights counting invoices at the kitchen table. I still remember the smell of diesel mixed with his cologne when he came home from the yard. When he passed, it felt like someone had cut the engine to my life. For months, I didn't speak more than a few sentences a day. Then came the decision to sell everything we'd built. $7 million. That's what the papers said when the deal closed. People in town looked at me differently after that. Like I was something fragile and gilded. But my daughter, Melissa, looked at me like a vault that had just been unlocked. She smiled too easily, called too often, and every conversation curved back to the same subject. "What's the plan for the money, Mom?" Melissa had changed after Harold's death. Or maybe I just started noticing what I'd been pretending not to see. The impatience in her tone, the way her eyes darted when I hesitated to answer a question about the estate. Her husband, Tyler, was slicker than an oil spill. White teeth, silk shirts, and that salesman charm that could make a lie sound like a prayer. He always called me Mama Evelyn with that smile that never touched his eyes. I used to think he just wanted to impress me. Now I wondered if he was calculating. It started with small things. Melissa suggesting smart investments in Tyler's startup. "Just a few $100,000, Mom. You'd still have more than enough for your retirement." Then it grew bolder. A family vacation to Italy as a way to heal. And when I refused, she'd pout like a child denied candy. One night she said, "You don't really need all that money sitting in a bank. It's just paper. Dad would have wanted you to enjoy it with family." I didn't answer her. But after she left, I sat in the dark for hours and whispered to Harold's empty chair, "Would you still love her if you saw her now?" The next morning, I called Mr. Green, our family lawyer, a man Harold trusted more than his own brothers. His voice was steady as always when I told him what I was planning. "You want to test her," he repeated slowly. "You're sure?" "I need to know," I said. "Before I die, I need to know if my daughter loves me or what I have." So we built the plan. I moved $7 million into a private trust under a different name, one Melissa couldn't trace. Then I told her the story, that the lawyer who'd handled the sale had vanished with everything. I rehearsed the words in my bathroom mirror for days, trying to get the tremor right. When I finally told her, she gasped and covered her mouth like a woman in a soap opera. "Oh, Mom," she whispered. "How could he do that to you?" Then she hugged me so tightly I could smell her perfume, expensive and sharp, the kind that fills a room even after the person leaves. "Don't worry," she said, tears glistening. "You'll always have me." She said the right words, but something about the hug felt wrong. Too quick, too dry. I've buried enough people to know when tears are real. That night I sat at my vanity, brushing my gray hair, and caught my own reflection watching me. I wasn't a helpless widow. I was a woman who had built a business from sweat and instinct. Harold used to say, "You see through people, Eve. You just pretend you don't." Maybe it was time to stop pretending. The next day, I called an old friend who ran a private security company. "I need a camera installed," I told him. "Discreet, voice and motion recording. Something small." He didn't ask why. He just sent a man named Reggie who had kind eyes and no questions. Within an hour, my bedroom had eyes, hidden in the carved rose of my bedside lamp, another in the corner shelf, angled perfectly toward the chair where visitors sat. When Melissa arrived that evening with a casserole she hadn't cooked, I made sure she sat right there. She talked about her spa trip, her Pilates instructor, her latest wellness business. She didn't ask how I was holding up, not once. Then she said lightly, "You should move in with us, Mom. We have the space, and it'd be easier to keep an eye on you." I smiled. "You mean keep an eye on the woman who lost $7 million?" She flushed, but laughed it off. "Oh, Mom, you're terrible." That night, when I replayed the footage, I saw it. The way she rolled her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking, the quick text she sent under the table. She really lost it all. Unreal. I didn't sleep. The lie had worked too well. The next morning, I felt the weight of Harold's old wristwatch on my hand and made myself a promise. I wouldn't just test my daughter's love. I'd find out how deep her betrayal could go. I poured myself coffee, black and steady, and whispered to the empty kitchen, "Let's see what you do, Melissa, when you think your mother's broke." The morning. After my confession, Melissa called at sunrise, her voice sugar-coated with concern. "Did you sleep at all, Mom?" she asked. I told her I was fine, though the truth was I'd spent the whole night watching the replay from that camera. Every blink of hers, every smirk between her soft, "poor you" phrases. It was all there, proof of the act. Still, I gave her the performance she expected, the frail mother who'd lost everything. By noon, she was at my door with a bouquet of roses, the kind she used to buy only on Mother's Day when Harold would pay. She set them on the table, kissed my cheek, and said, "You shouldn't be alone right now." She looked around the house like a realtor inspecting property. "Maybe it's time to downsize," she added softly. "The upkeep must be killing you." I let her talk. The cameras were running, and her words would do the work for me. For the next week, she played the dutiful daughter. She brought groceries, straightened cushions, called the bank pretending to check on any updates. But between her visits, there were gaps. Hours when she didn't pick up my calls. Then days. The casserole dishes she'd promised to return never came back, and neither did she. When I finally called her, she answered from somewhere loud. Laughter, clinking glasses, music in the background. "Mom, I'm out with friends. Can I call you later?" "I just wanted to tell you the investigator says it may take months," I said quietly. "Months?" she echoed, her tone flat. "That's tough, Mom. But hey, you're strong. You'll get through it." Then she hung up before I could reply. That evening, I sat at Harold's desk, the same one we'd bought when the business first turned a profit. The wood was scratched and scarred, like him. I ran my hand over the grooves and whispered, "You were right, Harold. Money doesn't change people. It just reveals them." Mr. Green came by 2 days later. I poured him tea in Harold's old mug, the one that said "World's Most Patient Man." "She's distancing herself," I told him. "Fewer calls, shorter visits. Tyler hasn't come around once." He nodded. "They'll show their hand soon enough. Keep the cameras on. Say nothing." "I'm not sure what I'm looking for anymore," I admitted. "The truth," he said simply, "and truth rarely shows up politely." By the third week, Melissa's tone had shifted completely. She'd stopped calling me Mama and started saying Evelyn, as if formality could build a wall between guilt and consequence. She mentioned that Tyler was considering a business opportunity in Austin and that they might have to borrow some money to relocate. I almost laughed. "Borrow from whom, Melissa?" I asked. "You know I don't have anything left." There was a pause, then a brittle laugh. "Oh, right, I keep forgetting." That was the first time her mask cracked. The next morning, I packed a small overnight bag and went to the doctor for a checkup. The stress had gnawed at my appetite. My blood pressure was a mess, and the doctor insisted I rest. I told Melissa I was being admitted overnight for observation. Her response was immediate and perfunctory. "Oh no, Mom, that's terrible. But I can't drive up tonight. Tyler's got an event. I'll come by tomorrow." She didn't. Lying in that sterile hospital room, I stared at the ceiling and felt a strange calm. It wasn't the calm of peace, but the kind you feel right before a storm you've decided to let break. I watched nurses come and go, heard the faint beeping of monitors, smelled the antiseptic air. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughed. Bright, careless laughter that didn't belong in a place like that. When I turned my head toward the nightstand, I saw the small vase of flowers my security friend had delivered earlier, with another hidden camera tucked inside. I'd told him to install it that morning, just in case. "People act different in hospitals," I'd said. "They think sickness makes you deaf." The next afternoon, Melissa finally arrived. Her hair was perfect, her clothes designer pressed, and her sympathy rehearsed. She kissed my forehead and sighed dramatically. "You poor thing. I told Tyler you'd push yourself too hard." She stayed for an hour, scrolling her phone between platitudes. When the nurse came in, Melissa leaned toward her and whispered, "Do you think she'll be okay on her own? She gets confused sometimes." I didn't move, didn't blink, just let the camera capture it all. That night, after she left, I called Mr. Green from my hospital bed. "Keep everything recording," I said. "I want every word." He hesitated. "You're sure you want to keep doing this? It's becoming cruel." "Cruel," I repeated. "Cruel is what greed does to love. I'm just giving it a mirror." I hung up and stared out the window. The city lights flickered like dying stars. Somewhere out there, my daughter was probably laughing over dinner, telling someone how her poor mother had been scammed. I pressed the nurse call button and asked for the lights to be dimmed. The camera's red light blinked once, then stilled. "Let's see who you really are when you think I'm asleep," I whispered. It started with whispers, the kind you hear only when you pretend to sleep. That night, the machines hummed beside my bed, their green lights pulsing slow and steady like a heartbeat, and my daughter's perfume drifted in before she did. I didn't open my eyes, I just listened. The door creaked, soft footsteps, and then her voice, hushed but sharp enough to cut through the quiet. "She looks worse today," Melissa said. A man's voice answered, low and impatient. "Tyler. Good. The sooner this wraps up, the better." My pulse stuttered. I kept my breathing steady, shallow. The nurse must have stepped out, leaving them alone with me. The camera's red light blinked faintly from the corner vase, recording every word. Melissa sighed. "I don't even know what's left. She says she lost everything. But she still has that insurance policy, right?" Tyler chuckled under his breath. $250,000 at least. And the house. She'll sign it over if we play this right. Just keep being the crying daughter. You're good at that." "Tyler, stop." "No, seriously," he said, his tone darkening. "We can't keep scraping by while she wastes what's left on pills and hospital bills. If she's too stubborn to help, maybe it's time to help ourselves." Something inside me went cold. Not anger, not even heartbreak, but a stillness so deep it almost felt like peace. Because there it was, the truth, laid bare in the dark, right above my heart monitor's steady beeping. Then came the moment I'll never forget, the sound of papers unfolding. Tyler's voice again. "These are medical directives, standard stuff. If she signs, we can manage her assets. You just need to get her hand on the line. She won't even remember in the morning." Melissa hesitated. "Tyler, she's my mother." "Your broke mother," he hissed. "Think about the debt, the credit cards. You want to keep living like this?" Silence. A long one. Then the faint scrape of a pen. I almost sat up right then, but I forced myself to stay still, to let the camera catch it all. The rustle of the blanket as she lifted my hand, the whisper of paper, the sound of a daughter choosing greed over love. When they left, the door clicked softly behind them. I waited another 10 minutes before opening my eyes. The room was empty except for the quiet hum of machines. I turned my head toward the vase. Its red light was steady again, proof. At dawn, I asked the nurse to fetch my lawyer. When Mr. Green arrived, I showed him the footage from my phone, the part I'd managed to transfer before Melissa returned. He watched silently, his expression tightening with every second. When it ended, he exhaled slowly. "They forged your signature," he said. "Yes." "And you want to press charges?" "Not yet," I said. "Let's see how far they'll go." He studied me. "You're not afraid of them?" "I'm afraid of what happens if I forgive them too soon." Later that day, Melissa breezed into the room carrying a new set of flowers. "You look better," she said brightly, as if she hadn't just committed fraud in that same space less than 12 hours earlier. I smiled weakly and let her feed me soup I didn't want. "You know, Mom," she said, "maybe we should move you in with us for a while. You shouldn't be alone in that house." "Oh," I murmured. "Tyler could manage your medications. I could help with bills. It'd just be easier for everyone." I nodded. "I'll think about it." When she left, I watched her reflection in the dark hospital. Window, my daughter, walking away in her high heels, phone pressed to her ear, already laughing at something Tyler said. That night, I whispered to Harold's memory, "You once told me the hardest thing about love is watching it rot and doing nothing. But I'm not doing nothing anymore." I called Reggie, the security technician, and told him to install 2 more cameras at the house, one in the living room, one in my study. Then I asked the nurse to schedule my discharge for the next morning. By the time Melissa came to pick me up, the house was already wired, the footage safely backed up to a drive Mr. Green kept at his office. I smiled as she drove me home. Her hand was light on the wheel, her nails perfectly done, her voice soft as silk. "Don't worry, Mom," she said. "Everything's going to be fine now." I watched the road slide by through the window, my reflection faint in the glass. Tired, older, but not broken. "Fine," I echoed quietly. "Yes, I think it will be." Home didn't feel like home anymore. The air had changed. My house used to smell like Harold's coffee and the faint sweetness of his pipe tobacco. Now it smelled of disinfectant and betrayal. The nurses had left that morning, the machines gone, and silence took their place. Melissa fussed around the kitchen, rearranging things she didn't need to touch. "You really shouldn't live alone, Mom," she said, her tone bright but hollow. "I was thinking, maybe we could rent this place out. You'd have a steady income and you could stay with us. Tyler's already looking at apartments closer to downtown." I watched her from the armchair, my blanket folded neatly over my knees. "Rent out my home." "It's practical," she said, shrugging. "You don't need all this space. It's just too much for one person." There it was again. The soft voice, the polite suggestion, the knife hiding behind a smile. I nodded slowly as if she'd convinced me. "Maybe you're right." She blinked, surprised at how easily I agreed. "Really?" "Yes," I said. "I suppose Harold would want me to be practical." That name, Harold, always made her pause. Maybe it reminded her that he was watching wherever he was. Maybe she feared his judgment more than mine. That night, I lay awake in bed, the lamp off, the camera's faint red light pulsing like a second heartbeat in the room. Through the thin walls, I could hear Melissa in the guest room on the phone. Her voice was sharp now, stripped of the sugary concern she used in front of me. "She's still buying it," she whispered. "Yeah, the old woman's half out of it. She's scared to be alone. We'll get her to sign the lease papers next week. Tyler already has a guy lined up to manage the rent. Don't worry, I'll handle her." I felt something twist inside me, not pain, not rage, but something colder, the kind of clarity that comes when you finally stop lying to yourself. My daughter wasn't misguided. She wasn't desperate. She was hungry. The next morning, she made pancakes, humming as if we were playing house. "You're quiet today," she said, handing me a plate. "Just tired," I murmured. "Hospitals do that to you." "Maybe you should rest more," she said. "Oh, and by the way, Tyler found someone who might help with your situation. He knows a financial advisor who helps people who've been scammed. He says he could recover some of the money." "How kind," I said softly. "Does he charge much?" Only a small consultation fee, she said quickly. He'll come by tonight. You can just sign the authorization so he can start looking into it. I smiled at her then, a slow, deliberate smile that she mistook for gratitude. Of course, darling. You take care of everything. When she left the kitchen, I called Mr. Green. She's bringing someone tonight, I told him. Another setup? Worse. They think they're clever. I want every angle covered. He hesitated. You sure you want to keep pretending? I looked out the window where the morning sun glinted off Harold's old truck in the driveway. Pretending is the only thing keeping me alive right now. That evening, Tyler arrived wearing a suit too expensive for his real job. His handshake was slick, his smile wider than ever. The man he brought with him called himself Grant, a financial recovery specialist. He carried a leather briefcase and the kind of confidence only con men have. Mrs. Carter, he said, shaking my hand, I'm so sorry for your losses. Tyler told me everything. I think I can help you recover at least part of what was taken. Oh, I said, playing dumb. You can get my money back? He smiled reassuringly. That's the goal. I'll just need a few signatures so we can act on your behalf. Melissa hovered behind him, her face carefully blank. She was nervous now, not for me, but for the deal. I glanced at the folder he placed on the table. 3 pages stapled neatly. My name was printed at the top in bold type. Below it, I recognized something strange, a line giving power of attorney to Tyler Simmons. I looked up slowly, letting silence fill the space between us. My daughter's husband would be in charge of my finances? Just temporarily, Tyler said quickly. It's the only way to get things moving. We'd never take advantage of you. I almost laughed. Of course not. The pen felt heavy in my hand. I signed where he pointed, but with the faintest tremor, enough to make the signature look uncertain. I handed the papers back, folded neatly, and smiled. Thank you, gentlemen. I trust you'll take care of everything. As they left, Melissa squeezed my hand. You'll see, Mom. We'll make this right. When the door closed behind them, I turned to the vase in the corner. Did you get all that? I whispered to the camera. The red light blinked once. I called Mr. Green immediately. They're escalating, I said. He brought fake legal documents. Tyler's name is on them. He sighed. We'll have them analyzed in the morning. Do you want to confront her? Not yet, I said. I want to see how far she'll go when she thinks I'm blind. That night, I poured myself a small glass of Harold's old bourbon, sat by the window, and watched their car disappear down the road. They think they're writing my ending, I whispered to the dark. But they've forgotten. I built my life from nothing, and I still know how to start a fire. Morning sunlight crept through the curtains, warm and golden, but my house still felt cold. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the coffee mug in my hands, the same chipped one Harold used every day. The steam rose in lazy spirals, but I didn't taste it. I was thinking about the papers, the ones I'd signed the night before with just enough pressure to leave an imprint, but not enough to make it legally binding. The cameras had caught everything, down to the faint tremor in my hand. By 8, Mr. Green called. I've reviewed the document, he said. It's counterfeit. Poorly done, but convincing enough for someone who doesn't know better. They forged my firm's letterhead. I breathed out slowly. Then they're serious. They're desperate, he corrected. Tyler's company went bankrupt last quarter. He's drowning in debt. Melissa's credit cards are maxed out, too. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. So I'm the lifeboat. He paused. Do you want me to intervene? No, I said softly. Let them think the storm's calm. They'll walk right into the lightning. After we hung up, I spent the morning cleaning. I dusted Harold's framed photos, his medals, even the glass display case with the old trucking license that had started our empire. He used to joke that every success story starts with a truck and ends with a lawyer. He wasn't wrong. Around noon, Melissa called. Hey, Mom, we talked to Grant this morning. He said things look promising, but we'll need access to your bank records, the old ones from before the sale. He says they'll help him trace the missing funds. That makes sense, I said evenly. You can pick them up later. Perfect, she chirped. Tyler'll swing by after work. She hung up before I could respond. When I replayed last night's footage, I studied every frame, the way Melissa avoided my eyes when I signed, the way Tyler smirked as he folded the papers. My daughter's face was the hardest part to look at. There was no hesitation anymore, no flicker of shame, just hunger and relief. That evening, Tyler arrived alone. He wore a different kind of smile this time, cocky, impatient. "Hey, Mama Evelyn," he said, walking in like he owned the place. "Melissa said you had the bank files ready." I gestured toward the dining table. "They're right there. But before you take them, I'd like to understand what's happening." He gave a little laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. "Nothing to worry about, just some financial recovery work. You've been through a lot, and we want to make sure you're protected." "Protected?" I repeated. "From what exactly?" He hesitated. "From more scams. There are predators everywhere." I smiled thinly. "Yes, there are." He picked up the folder too quickly. I saw the faint tremor in his hand, the kind of shake that doesn't come from fear, but from addiction. Maybe gambling, maybe something worse. The smell of cheap whiskey clung to him. "Melissa's lucky to have you," I said, my tone flat. He froze for half a second, then recovered with a grin. "We take care of family, that's all." "Family," I murmured. That word used to mean something. When he left, I locked the door and checked the footage from the new living room camera. It had caught every second. The way his eyes darted toward the safe behind the bookshelf, the moment he lingered near my purse. Later that night, I called Mr. Green again. "He took the files," I said. "Let him. We'll trace his next move." I hesitated. "He's drinking. He's reckless. If this goes wrong—" "It won't," he said firmly. "The cameras are your armor. Stay calm." But I wasn't calm. I sat in Harold's old chair and stared at the empty hallway. Memories bled into the present. Melissa as a little girl, standing there with pigtails and scraped knees, holding a paper flower she'd made for me on Mother's Day. "You're my whole world, Mommy." I closed my eyes. The sound of her adult voice, flat, manipulative, echoed through me like static. By morning, the first domino fell. The bank called. "Mrs. Carter, we've received a power of attorney request filed under your name, but something doesn't look right." The manager's voice was cautious. "It's missing a notary seal. Do you know anything about this?" "Yes," I said quietly. "And if anyone tries to process it, I want you to call the police." When I hung up, I smiled for the first time in days. They'd taken the bait. That afternoon, Melissa arrived unannounced, all false concern and forced laughter. "Mom, you won't believe what happened. Tyler says there's some confusion with the paperwork. The bank called him about it. You probably mixed up a signature somewhere." I folded my hands. "Maybe I did." "Don't worry, we'll fix it," she said, touching my arm. "Just sign the corrected forms when he brings them back." Her voice cracked on the word sign. She knew I'd seen something. She just didn't know what. That night, I sat on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the trees. The cicadas screamed and the air smelled like rain. I poured a small drink for Harold and set it beside his picture frame. "They're almost at the edge, love," I whispered. "Just one more push." In the distance, thunder rumbled, low, patient, promising. The next morning came quiet, but it carried the kind of silence that presses on your chest before something snaps. I could feel it, the tension thick in the air like a storm waiting to break. The papers had rattled them. The call from the bank had spooked Tyler. I imagined him pacing their living room, glass in hand, blaming Melissa for not handling her mother right. When the doorbell rang at 9:30 sharp, I already knew it would be her. Melissa stood there, dressed too well for a casual visit. Her hair perfect, her perfume expensive, her smile stretched thin. She carried a small folder and a takeout coffee she never intended for me. "Morning, Mom," she said brightly. "You look great. I brought breakfast." She never used to bring breakfast, not once in her life. I let her in. She placed the folder on the table, then hovered near the window, pretending to admire the garden. "You've really kept the roses alive," she said. "Dad would have been proud." I tilted my head, studying her. "Dad used to say roses only bloom for honest hands." Her smile faltered for a heartbeat, then returned, too quickly. "Anyway," she said, clearing her throat, "Tyler fixed the mix-up. The bank just needs your signature on the corrected forms. It's all very standard. Once that's done, Grant can move forward with recovering your money." "Ah," I said softly. "Recovering the money I don't have." She blinked. "Well, yes, but technically it's about the legal authority, not the balance." I reached for the folder. "May I?" She nodded too fast. The papers inside were fresh, printed last night probably. I flipped through them slowly, pretending not to notice the subtle differences. The cleaner formatting, the new notary stamp that looked like it had been forged from a photocopy. I turned a page, then looked up at her. "Melissa," I said quietly, "how's your car loan?" She froze. "What?" "Your loan," I repeated. "The one you took out last year. You were behind on payments in March, weren't you?" Her eyes darted away. I don't know what that has to do with anything." "It has everything to do with it," I said, my tone still calm, "because people in debt make desperate decisions." She drew a sharp breath, color rising in her cheeks. "You think I'm desperate? I'm trying to help you, Mom." "By forging my name?" The words hung in the air like a shot. Her face drained. "What did you say?" I leaned back in my chair, the faint hum of the hidden camera in the corner capturing every flicker of her expression. "You heard me. The bank called. Mr. Green verified the documents. You and your husband tried to take control of my accounts." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her mascaraed lashes fluttered, trembling. For a second, I saw the little girl she used to be, the one who used to run into my arms after every school recital. But then, the mask slid back into place. "Tyler handled the paperwork," she said quickly. "I didn't know. Don't lie to me." Her shoulders stiffened. "You think I'd ever hurt you? I'm your daughter." "Exactly," I said softly. "That's what makes it hurt." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. She picked up the coffee cup, her hand shaking slightly. "Mom," she said finally, "you don't understand how hard things have been. Tyler lost everything when that company folded. I'm trying to keep us afloat." I looked at her for a long moment. "And you thought drowning me would make you swim?" Her eyes welled up. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," I cut in. "You meant every bit of it. You wanted to see what you could take before I was gone." She turned away, wiping her face, her voice breaking. "You think I don't love you?" "I think you love what I can give you." She spun around, anger rising through the tears. "Fine. You want honesty? You've never needed me, Mom, not once. It's always been you and Dad and your business and your perfect legacy. I just wanted to be part of it." "By stealing it?" I asked quietly. She pressed her lips together, trembling. "You'll never understand." Then she grabbed the folder and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The sound echoed through the house long after she was gone. I sat there for several minutes, staring at the empty space she'd left. Then I reached under the table and pressed the small black remote taped beneath the wood. The lamp camera blinked twice, then began uploading. Every word, every tear, every lie. That evening, Mr. Green came by. I played the footage for him in silence. When it ended, he looked at me carefully. "This is enough," he said. "We can go to the police now." I shook my head. "Not yet." "Evelyn." "She's unraveling," I said. "If I stop now, she'll blame Tyler. But if I wait, she'll show me who she really is when no one's watching." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "You're gambling with your heart." "I've already lost that bet," I said. "Now I'm playing for truth." After he left, I poured myself tea and sat by the window, watching the wind move through the trees. The first raindrops hit the glass, slow and steady. She thinks she's winning, I whispered to the empty room. But she hasn't realized yet, every move she makes, she's writing my story. The thunder rolled again, closer this time. The storm was almost here. That night, the rain came down like the sky was trying to wash the whole world clean. I sat alone in the living room, the glow of the streetlight spilling across the floor, and listened to it drum against the windows. My house felt both alive and haunted. Like Harold's, Ghost was pacing in the hallway, waiting for justice that had been too long denied. I poured myself a small drink and tried to quiet the shaking in my hands. Not from fear, from adrenaline. I'd spent my whole life fighting storms, but this one was different. This one had my daughter's face. Around midnight, headlights flashed through the window. Tires screeched on the wet gravel. Then came a pounding on the door, 3 sharp knocks, not polite, angry. I didn't move at first. Then I stood slowly, straightened my robe, and opened the door. Melissa was standing there, drenched, mascara streaking her cheeks, hair plastered to her face. Her voice broke the second she saw me. "You told the bank, didn't you?" I didn't answer. I just stepped aside and let her in. She stormed past me, dripping rainwater on the carpet, her purse half open and shaking in her hand. "They froze our accounts," she shouted. "Tyler's furious. He said you're trying to ruin us." I shut the door behind her, calm and deliberate. "I'm not trying to ruin anyone. You did that all by yourself." She spun toward me, eyes wild. "You don't understand. Tyler said this was temporary. He said you'd get your money back and you believed him," I said softly. She froze, then looked away, chest heaving. I didn't know he'd do that. I studied her face, the trembling lip, the panic that wasn't about guilt, but exposure. "What did he do, Melissa?" When she didn't answer, I walked past her and sat down. "If you're here to confess, sit. If you're here to lie, the cameras will remember for you." Her head jerked up. "What?" I gestured toward the lamp. The little red light blinked once. "You didn't think your mother was stupid, did you?" She paled. "You recorded me?" "I recorded truth," I said. "Something you've been allergic to lately." She backed up, shaking her head. "You had no right." "I had every right," I interrupted. "You came into my home and forged my name. You plotted with your husband to steal what I spent a lifetime building. You stood in a hospital room and pretended to care while you whispered about insurance money. And you think I crossed the line?" Tears spilled down her cheeks, mixing with the rain. "Mom, please." But the word please didn't sound like a daughter begging forgiveness. It sounded like a gambler asking for one last loan. I leaned forward, voice steady. "What did Tyler do?" She hesitated, biting her lip until it bled. Then the words tumbled out, fast and ragged. "He took the documents to his friend. Grant isn't even real, Mom. He's some guy Tyler met at a poker game. They were going to use your name to refinance your house before the bank froze it. He said it was quick money, that we'd fix it later, that you'd never know." She broke down then, sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. "I didn't mean to, Mom. I swear I didn't mean for it to go that far." I sat there, watching the storm through the window. Lightning flashed across the glass, painting her face in white light for an instant. And in that brief moment, I didn't see my daughter. I saw the child I'd raised, the girl with scraped knees and a laugh that once filled this same room. But the moment passed. "Where is he now?" I asked. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "He left. He took the car and said if you press charges, he's gone for good." I exhaled slowly. "Then he's already gone." I stood and walked toward the cabinet near the wall. Inside was Harold's old safe, the one even Melissa didn't know the combination to. I spun the dial, opened it, and pulled out a small black folder. Inside were printed copies of the camera footage, still images, timestamps, transcripts, everything. I placed it on the table in front of her. "This is what you and Tyler did," I said. "Every word, every signature, every plan. If I hand this to the police, it's over." Her hands trembled. Please, Mom, you can't. I can, I said quietly. And maybe I should. But I need to understand something first. She looked up, eyes swollen. Why? I asked. Why would you steal from me? From your mother? You know what I went through with Harold. The sacrifices, the nights we went hungry to pay the drivers, the years it took to build that company. You saw it. Her voice was barely a whisper. Because I wanted to feel like you. Strong, secure, untouchable. I thought money could make me that. I stared at her. And now? She looked down at her shaking hands. Now I feel like dirt. Lightning cracked again, followed by a deep rumble that shook the windows. I stood and walked toward her. For a second, she flinched, like she thought I might hit her. I didn't. I just placed a folded piece of paper in front of her. What's this? She asked. A confession, I said. Write down everything. Every call, every signature, every lie. Then leave. Her eyes widened. Where will I go? That's not my problem anymore. She hesitated, then reached for the pen. Her sobs filled the house as she wrote. By the time she finished, the storm had passed. The rain slowed to a drizzle, the thunder fading into the distance. She left without another word, closing the door softly behind her. I sat back down, staring at the signed confession in front of me. For the first time in months, I felt empty. Not relieved, not vengeful, just hollow. I whispered to the quiet house, "You always said the truth would hurt, Harold, but you never said it would echo." By morning, the storm had moved on, leaving behind air so still it felt like the house was holding its breath. Rainwater clung to the window panes in tiny rivers, and the world outside shimmered clean and deceptive, like nothing bad had ever happened. But inside, on my kitchen table, sat the truth. My daughter's handwritten confession, smudged in places where her tears had fallen. I stared at that paper for a long time. There was no satisfaction, no sense of triumph, just a quiet ache that reached places even Harold's death hadn't touched. Losing him broke my heart. Losing her dismantled my faith. I made myself coffee and turned on the computer. Reggie had delivered the backup drive last night while Melissa was here. Every camera's recording had been automatically synced. The vase in the hospital room, the lamp in the living room, the one above the bookshelf, all had done their jobs. I inserted the drive, double-clicked the folder labeled Carter Residence, and watched the thumbnails load like ghosts coming to life. It was all there. Melissa's whispered conversations, Tyler's smirk. The moment they guided my limp hand across the fake signature line, their laughter when they thought I couldn't hear. I clicked on the hospital footage first. The screen flickered, showing my own pale face under fluorescent lights. Melissa sat beside me, scrolling her phone while pretending to cry. I heard her voice, trembling with fake concern, saying, "You'll always have me, Mom." Then, a few minutes later, when she thought I was asleep, her tone changed, cold, flat. She really lost it all, Ty. $7 million, gone. God, she's pathetic. I paused the video and closed my eyes. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Then I hit play again. The camera caught Tyler entering the room later that night. The two of them whispered, conspiring, their faces inches apart in the dim hospital light. "We just need her signature," he said. "Once she's out, we'll move the assets before Green finds out." Melissa hesitated. "What if she wakes up?" "Then we'll tell her she's confused. She's old. No one will believe her." I didn't realize I was gripping the edge of the desk until I saw my knuckles go white. My chest burned with something sharp. Not rage, not grief. Something colder, harder. Resolve. Next, I opened the clip from my living room the night Tyler brought the fake advisor. Their voices came through clear, every word cutting deeper than the last. Tyler's charm, Melissa's nervous laughter, my quiet compliance. Watching it, I saw what I'd been too close to see in real time, how easily manipulation masquerades as love. By the time the final video ended, the one from last night, the confrontation, I was shaking. Not from fear, from relief. The truth was no longer a ghost. It was evidence. I transferred the most damning clips to a separate folder titled Case Files. Then I sent a single email to Mr. Green with the subject line, "Deliver when I say." When I looked up from the screen, the morning sun had shifted. It painted long golden streaks across the room, touching Harold's old photo on the mantel. He looked the way he always did, steady, proud, the corners of his mouth hinting at a smile. "I did it, Harold," I said softly. "I caught them." But saying it aloud didn't feel like victory. It felt like eulogy. That afternoon, Melissa texted. Her message was short. "I'm sorry, Mom. Please don't hate me. Can we talk?" I stared at the words for a long time. Then I typed back, "Come tomorrow morning. Alone." I didn't send a threat. I didn't need to. The silence between us carried more weight than any warning could. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house sounded like footsteps. Every gust of wind felt like the world whispering questions I didn't want to answer. Around 3 a.m., I went back to the footage. Not to the crimes, not to the lies, but to one specific moment. Something I hadn't noticed before. In the hospital recording, just after Melissa told Tyler I'd lost everything, the nurse walked in. Melissa turned her head away, pretending to dab her eyes. And then, for a single second before she composed herself, her expression cracked. Her lips trembled, not with deceit, with something that looked like regret. It was fleeting. A second later, she was stone again. But it was there. And for reasons I couldn't explain, that second haunted me more than all the lies combined, because it meant she still had something human left, and that made what I had to do next even harder. The next morning, I printed the confession and placed it inside a manila envelope along with a USB drive containing the footage. I labeled it in black ink, to be opened only if I disappear. Then I tucked it inside the bottom drawer of Harold's desk, the one that locked from the inside. By 9 a.m., I'd showered, dressed, and brewed fresh coffee. The house looked ordinary again, peaceful even. Only the faint red blink of the camera light betrayed the truth. When the doorbell rang, I didn't rush to answer. I took a slow breath, steadying my hands. Melissa stood there, pale, nervous, her eyes swollen from crying. She looked smaller than I remembered, like the weight of her own choices had begun to crush her. "Hi, Mom," she whispered. "Come in," I said. She hesitated at the threshold, glancing past me into the quiet house. For the first time in months, she looked unsure, not calculating, not rehearsed, just lost. And that's when I realized the test I had set for her wasn't over. It was just entering its final stage. Melissa stepped inside like she was walking into a stranger's house. Her heels clicked softly on the hardwood, each step slower than the last, her shoulders hunched as if she was carrying invisible chains. The air between us felt heavy, the kind that makes breathing an act of will. She stood by the table where her confession still sat, folded and untouched, as if waiting for her. She saw it instantly. Her voice trembled when she spoke. "You kept it?" I didn't answer right away. I poured coffee into 2 cups, one for her, one for me, and placed them on the table. "Sit down, Melissa." She obeyed, eyes fixed on her shaking hands. The silence stretched until even the sound of the clock ticking felt loud. Finally, she whispered, "I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing your voice. I don't know why I did it, Mom. I thought I was helping. I thought—" "No," I cut in quietly. "You thought I'd die soon enough and no one would notice what you took." Her mouth opened, but no words came. She looked at me like a woman standing on the edge of a cliff, realizing too late that the ground beneath her has already crumbled. "I saw the footage," I continued, my tone calm but steady. "All of it. The hospital, the fake lawyer, the forged signatures, the phone calls, Every word you whispered when you thought I couldn't hear you." Her breath hitched. You watched it?" "Yes," I said, "and I listened to the woman my daughter has become." Her eyes filled with tears, her voice cracking. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I just wanted to fix things, to feel in control. After Dad died, everything fell apart. Tyler said—" "Stop," I interrupted sharply. "Do not give that man the power to rewrite your choices. You weren't a puppet, Melissa. You held the strings." She pressed her palms together like she was praying. "I was scared, Mom." "You were greedy," I corrected. "There's a difference." She looked up then, and for a brief second I saw the girl she once was. The little girl who used to sneak into my bed during thunderstorms, whispering that she'd protect me if monsters came. But the woman sitting before me now was the monster, and I couldn't unsee it. "I know what happens next," she whispered. "You're going to turn me in." I didn't answer. I just studied her. The trembling lip, the guilt fighting with self-preservation in her eyes. "Do you think that's what you deserve?" She hesitated, then nodded weakly. "Yes." "Do you mean it?" I pressed. "Or are you just saying what you think I want to hear?" "I mean it," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. I leaned forward, lowering my voice to a whisper. "You know what hurt the most? It wasn't the lies, it wasn't the money. It was watching you sit in that hospital room and pretend to cry, pretend to care. I gave you life, Melissa, and you used that gift to practice deceit." She wiped her tears with shaking hands. "I hate myself for it." "Then prove it." She blinked. "How?" I reached for the second folder on the table, a new one, thicker, heavier. I slid it toward her. "These are the files Mr. Green drew up this morning. It's a legal transfer of your late father's foundation, the Carter Foundation. It's real, it's legitimate, and I'm giving it to you." Her head jerked up. "What? Why?" "Because you say you want redemption. Here's your chance. Every dollar in that fund, $1 million to be exact, is to be used for charity. If you take 1 cent for yourself, I'll release everything. The confession, the footage, all of it. It'll go to the police and every newspaper in this state." Her mouth fell open. "You'd trust me with that kind of money after what I did?" I looked her dead in the eye. "No, I'm not trusting you. I'm testing you." The silence that followed was suffocating. She stared at the folder like it was radioactive, her fingers twitching toward it but never touching. Finally, she whispered, "What if I fail again?" "Then I'll know who you truly are," I said, "and so will you." She looked at me for a long time, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I don't deserve forgiveness." "Forgiveness isn't a gift," I said. "It's a debt that must be earned." Melissa exhaled shakily, nodding. "I'll do it. I'll prove it." "Good," I said, "because this time you'll be watched. Every transaction, every donation, every signature, and not by me, by the same cameras you never saw." Her face went pale. "You mean you're still—" "Yes," I said simply. "You taught me never to stop recording." She gave a broken laugh through her tears. "You really are something, Mom." "I learned from the best," I replied. "You made me sharper." We sat in silence after that. The air between us was fragile, almost sacred in its discomfort. She picked up the folder, hugged it to her chest, and whispered, "I'll make it right." I stood and walked her to the door. As she stepped out into the sunlight, she turned back one last time. "Do you still love me?" I met her eyes. "Always," I said. "But love doesn't mean blindness." When the door closed, the house felt heavier, quieter than it had in years. I sat back at the table and looked at Harold's photo on the wall. "You'd tell me I was crazy," I whispered, giving her another chance. The photo, as always, said nothing, but I could almost hear his voice in my head, the same calm, low tone that used to steady me when life got hard. Sometimes mercy is the cruelest justice. That night, I slept for the first time in weeks, But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Because redemption isn't a story told once, it's one you have to live every day. And somewhere inside me, a voice whispered that not every sinner chooses to be saved. Weeks passed. The air turned colder, and autumn crept into the edges of the trees outside my window. The leaves burned orange and gold before falling to the ground. Quiet reminders that beauty can still come from endings. Melissa called every few days, her tone cautious, deliberate. "We had a meeting with the charity board today," she'd say. "I think we can start the scholarship program by next month." Her words were always careful, rehearsed, as if she was talking to a judge instead of her mother. And maybe she was. Each call ended with the same phrase, "I'm trying, Mom." I'd reply softly, "I know." But what I didn't say was that I watched every move she made. Mr. Green had arranged oversight for the foundation, real accountants, real audits. Every check required 2 signatures, one of them his. Melissa didn't know that yet. Let her think redemption was freedom. The truth was, she was still in a cage, just one with cleaner walls. Still, I couldn't deny it. Something about her voice was changing. The sharpness had dulled. The entitlement was fading, replaced by something quieter, something that almost sounded like humility. But scars don't heal that quickly. It was early November when the past came knocking again. I was reading on the porch when my phone buzzed, an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it, but instinct made me answer. "Mrs. Carter," a man's voice said, "this is Detective Larson from the County Sheriff's Office." The title alone tightened my throat. "Yes?" "We've located a man named Tyler Simmons. He's been arrested in connection with multiple counts of fraud. He mentioned your name during questioning." I closed my book slowly. "What did he say?" "He claims you transferred property to your daughter to hide assets during an ongoing investigation. He says you're part of it." I almost laughed. Almost. "You'll find my record clean, Detective. I have evidence that proves quite the opposite." "I figured," he said calmly, "but I wanted to confirm. Do you happen to have any video evidence of your own?" I smiled faintly, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "Detective, I have everything." When I hung up, I didn't call Melissa right away. I waited. I let the quiet stretch through the house like a living thing. The red light of the lamp camera blinked steadily, as if reminding me, this is why you never stopped watching. That evening, Melissa arrived unannounced, just like before. But this time, there was no arrogance in her step. She looked pale, shaken. Her eyes darted to the window, to the walls, to the lamp. "Mom," she said, her voice breaking, "he's been arrested. Tyler. They called me. He told them everything, or at least his version of everything." I nodded slowly. "I know." She sank into the chair across from me, her hands trembling. "He said I was part of it. He's trying to ruin me." I studied her face. There was fear there, yes, but not just fear of the law. It was fear of truth, of consequences finally catching up. "Were you?" I asked quietly. Her eyes filled with tears. "Not anymore. I swear, Mom, I'm not that person now." I looked at her for a long moment. "Do you know why I gave you that foundation?" She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Because power reveals a person faster than poverty ever could," I said. "And I needed to know if you'd change because of conscience or because you ran out of chances." She swallowed hard, her voice small. "And what do you see now?" I took a long breath. I see a woman standing at a crossroads, behind her, the ruins she built, ahead of her, a chance to rebuild something honest. But she can't walk both roads, Melissa. Not anymore. She buried her face in her hands. "I don't want to go to prison, Mom." I leaned forward, my tone even. "Then tell the truth. To the detectives. To yourself. To everyone you tried to fool." "I can't." "You can," I said firmly. "You already wrote the confession. You already spoke the lies. This time, speak the truth." She lifted her head, eyes red. "And if I do?" "Then maybe," I said, "we both get to start over." She was quiet for a long time, staring at her shaking hands. Then she nodded, slow and resigned. "Okay." The next morning, she went to the sheriff's office with Mr. Green. She gave her statement, not the softened, edited version, but the truth, every detail, every plan, every forgery. When she came back, she looked lighter, drained but lighter. "They said I won't be charged if I cooperate fully," she whispered. I nodded. "That's mercy, not forgiveness." She managed a faint smile. "I know." Later that night, after she left, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat by Harold's photo again. The house was quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the steady tick of the clock. "Do you see her now, Harold?" I whispered. "She's learning." The wind rustled outside, and for the first time the sound didn't feel lonely. It felt like a sigh, one the house had been holding for far too long. Before going to bed, I walked to the drawer where I'd kept that manila envelope, the one labeled, "To be opened only if I disappear." I pulled it out, tore it in half, and fed it to the fireplace. The flames caught quickly, curling the edges of the paper into gold. I watched until the words vanished into ash. It wasn't victory, it wasn't revenge, it was release. And as I stood there in the flicker of the firelight, I realized something Harold had tried to teach me all along. You don't heal by punishing others. You heal by letting the truth stand taller than your pain. But somewhere deep inside, a quiet question lingered, stubborn as smoke. Could truth ever be enough to rebuild love? Winter settled in quietly that year. The mornings came slower, the lights softer, and the house finally stopped feeling haunted. I'd wake to the sound of wind brushing against the porch and the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen, my small ritual of peace. For the first time in months, there was no dread waiting in the corners. Melissa kept her word. She worked tirelessly through the foundation, visiting shelters, setting up scholarships for single mothers, writing checks not for herself, but for strangers who would never know her name. Every week she sent me updates. Brief, factual, humble. We funded 3 housing grants this month. The first student got her acceptance letter. Simple sentences, but to me they sounded like prayers whispered back from the ruins. Mr. Green told me privately, "She's changing. Slowly, but she is." I didn't answer. Change is fragile. You don't name it too soon or it breaks. One evening in December, she called and asked if she could come for dinner. Not to talk business, not to explain anything, just dinner. I hesitated, then said yes. She arrived wearing no makeup, no jewelry, no performance. Just a plain sweater, her hair tied back. She looked older, softer, human. "You cooked?" she asked when she saw the pot simmering on the stove. "Of course," I said. "Your father used to say forgiveness tastes better over food." We ate in silence at first. The rhythm of forks and the hum of the heater filled the quiet. Halfway through, she looked up and said softly, "I saw the footage." My hand froze over my plate. "What?" "Mr. Green showed me," she said. "He said it was part of the legal record. I watched everything, Mom. The hospital, the house, the way I spoke to you. I couldn't even recognize myself. I wanted to reach through the screen and stop it." I put my fork down. "And?" Her eyes glistened. "I think you were right to test me. I think I needed to lose everything to understand what I'd already thrown away." The room went very still. The ticking clock filled the silence like a heartbeat. "You know," I said finally, "your father always believed love could survive anything. I never did. Not until now." She reached across the table, her hand trembling, and laid it over mine. "Do you still love me?" I looked at her hand. Thinner now, more fragile than I remembered. "Yes," I said quietly. "But not because you're my daughter. Because you finally became the kind of woman I can love again." She broke down then, her sobs raw, unguarded. I let her cry. I didn't comfort her, not at first. Some pains need to breathe before they can fade. But when she finally looked up, I opened my arms, and she came to me like she had as a child. No pretense, no distance, just blood and truth. We stayed like that for a long time, the two of us holding everything that had nearly destroyed us. After she left that night, I went to Harold's photo, the one on the mantel. "She's coming back to us," I whispered, not as the girl we raised, but as the woman she chose to become. Outside, snow had begun to fall, soft, unhurried, blanketing the world in quiet forgiveness. I watched it drift through the light and thought of all the nights I'd prayed for this moment, the nights I'd spoken to the dark and heard nothing back. Now, there was peace. Not the kind that forgets, but the kind that finally understands. Before bed, I unplugged every camera in the house, one by one. The red lights went dark, the little eyes that had guarded me closing at last. The house exhaled, and so did I. I sat by the window with a cup of tea, watching the snow gather on the porch rail, and whispered to myself, the truth didn't just expose them. It freed me. In the morning, Melissa would visit again. Not for forgiveness, not for money, not for absolution, just for coffee and quiet. And as I drifted to sleep, I realized that the real test hadn't been hers at all. It had been mine, to see if love could survive the truth. It did.